Welcome, everyone, to the most exciting 30 minutes of educational entertainment in the universe. It's Morning Bytes with me, Stu Panansky, Violet Sullivan, and Jason Rebholz. This is our monthly show here on LinkedIn to talk about the most important cyber topics of the month. We talk about all things cyber, privacy, technology, and everyone's favorite cyber insurance. Please welcome to our special guests. He is the founder and CEO of cybersecurity consulting firm Secure IT 360 and a noble citizen of Birmingham, Alabama. Welcome to Dave Forrestal.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. She is a partner of cyber law firm Mullen Coughlin, a noted speaker, author, and industry panel personality. Some call her the voice of cyber. It's Carolyn Perwin Ryan.
CPR.
The notorious. The views and opinions expressed here are solely our own and not those of our employers. Everyone in the audience listening now, say hello. Drop an introduction to yourself in the comments. Tell us, what do you do for cyber? Where are you listening from? Let's get the conversation started. Dave, let's start with you. I know we were talking before we got started, and you have a lot going on this month. There's a lot on your mind, but what's the primary thing there?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things that's happened recently is the SalesLoft Drift breach. So for those of you that don't know what SalesLoft and Drift are, apparently they're two different products, and there's an integration. And they used OAuth tokens to authenticate, which actually affected over 700 organizations. Now, the 700 organizations weren't actually breached. What happened is the tokens were reused. So it's basically like you either lost or got your keys stolen. That same key may fit many locks. And until you either change the locks or if you can somehow revoke the key, that key is going to be good. So it's been a common attack vector is stealing tokens, and OAuth by itself is a great framework and can be very secure. However, it always comes down to the implementation and the humans and what they do with it. Like some browsers will even put a token in briefly inside the browser, and you can snatch it right out of there or get it out of the cache. But we won't go too technical on that. For you attorneys, we got to keep it high level.
Don't underestimate us, David.
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding. Completely kidding. But where I think it's pretty interesting, besides just the actual breach itself, is we just commonly see these sales and marketing platforms are kind of overlooked. So you've got your regular third-party management. So let's assess our vendor. Do they have their SOC 2? Oh, great. Check, they're in. Well, there's a whole different level of that. It's let's assess the solution. What does it do? What data does it have access to? And again, it's sales and marketing. I mean, that's all common stuff. Everybody uses the same thing, right? Well, with all the new AI enablement with sales, it is out there trolling just terabytes of data and dumping it into these various platforms. And another thing too is typically, your cybersecurity professionals and maybe even your IT professionals aren't actually administering the sales platforms. So it's the sales team that has administrative access that's configuring this access, which could even be a backdoor into your, not just your CRM, but maybe your enterprise, your ERM as well. So that's another issue as well. And also too, I know I've seen with some of the SDR and outbound programs that we even use with our tech stack, which are changing just so quick, that, how do we know we're not gathering data from, European citizens and other fun things like that as you're trolling and collecting thousands and thousands of identities. So those are a couple of interesting things that have far-reaching consequences. And interestingly enough, and unfortunately, there's quite a few big name cybersecurity companies that got swept up into this as well. That some of that was released this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I heard you just say something in there about, how companies need to be mindful of what they put into their CRM. And I want to hear what Carolyn thinks about that. But we did get a request in the comments for more technical. So, Jason, that seems like it's a natural suggestion to call to you. especially since Dave's already shot down Carolyn, Violet's, and my technical prowess is. What are your thoughts with some of that vocabulary that David was just saying? I probably don't know the words.
Stu, how did you guys implement OAuth?
Technology.
Oh, the trap has been set.
We're gonna watch you the whole time.
Well done, well done.
So to me, this is the hidden risk of third-party risk. I not so secretly am hoping that this is like the final thing that lets us admit that we don't do third-party risk correctly in trying to understand what the real risks are. But call me an optimist there. But when you think about this is where you are allowing one application access to another. So the most simple thing here is think about when you log in to any other, like we'll say log into LinkedIn using your Google credentials. You are essentially allowing these credentials to be used to access another application on your behalf. In a perfect world, you can restrict access and do this in a perfect way, but that unfortunately is not how the real world works, and most people over permission these things, and so you get access to these. And this is where I know we've talked about this in the past of the risk of info stealers, where they're stealing your session cookies. This is what these attackers are doing. They stole these cookies. They can impersonate that company and get access to all the data. So this to me is like, this is the risk that every company needs to be paying attention to today. And it's hard to try to figure out like, hey, what is our risk ahead of time? So you also have to have this other aspect of it of, what do we do if our tokens are stolen? How do we quickly reset those credentials so that we can stop any unauthorized access and then get us back to a clean slate? And these are playbooks that I think a lot of companies need to think about. And how do you implement them?
And not just the reaction, containment, but also how do you manage the ripple effects of what happened during the time period? That what I would look to like Carolyn and Stu and be like, there's got to be a lot around what we don't know that we still have to legally think about.
It's like, I mean, Stu, how many times, if I had a dime for every single time that we talk to clients about what data and where you put it and where it goes and thinking about the risks associated with that going all over the place. And the best part is I always say, what can we talk about from a practical perspective? What can we do? What can we tell clients to do? Right. And one of the biggest things that I say to people is think about where your data is going, but do you need to use this program? And are there parameters around how you use it? Because, I mean, my goodness, how many times have we talked about this? I mean, how many times have we talked about, PowerSchool, all the other ones that are out there where people are utilizing different data fields and putting things like social security numbers in where they're not needed, or put in other information. Like this, by the way, Salesforce and Drift, this is continuing to go, right? I mean, there's 17,000 companies in the United States who use this. So the ramifications associated with this are not even yet to be seen. But how many times, Stu, do we go out there and say, take a look at those contracts. Take a look at the responsibilities back to you. And where you send that data out is your responsibility. It's your data. Like, data ownership is such a moving target these days. And the transfer of this data back and forth. I mean, look, the state and federal laws, they're going to be constantly changing. If I had if I just could sit here and say, all right, how many times is this going to change within the next couple of weeks? I mean, there's 17 states out there that are changing their laws every day, right? But when it comes to this, Stu and I have these conversations every day. What can you control is the contracts. Now, some of the times you can't, right? Who's going up against Amazon? Who's going up against Google? Who's going up against Salesforce, right? But that's what it comes to, right, Stu?
Yeah, but I'll broaden what you're saying, Carolyn. I agree with everything you just said, but I'll even broaden it further to say it really goes back to vendor management. I mean, if anything that this revealed it's that when there's just so much of an industry sector or so much of a part of the economy that relies on a single point of technology or maybe a small suite of choices in a type of technology. And I think there are some things that companies can do to mitigate that risk that are not cost prohibitive and are not reliant on all sorts of high tech. It's just, we start off, you said before, right, we have these conversations all the time. Do you have a list?
Right.
Do you have a list of all your vendors?
Right. And offline, right, Stu?
Yeah.
And not stuck in your system where, you might not have it. But to your point, right? Some of it's even just, you need to notify me. I mean, how many contracts do we say the other way around where it's like, notify me in 24 hours, 48 hours if you think my data is impacted? or just even in the event of something happening.
Or what about, Jason, you like to talk about shadow IT and stuff a lot. What if there's like, I mean, I don't know if this qualifies under that umbrella, but like shadow services, because think about how many things, just because they're not blocked, like, Google Docs or, some kind of box and file transfer that certain departments might use, it's not blocked and no one really knows that they use it for a day-to-day transaction. Would that still be shadow IT, or is that like shadow, or are we going to make a new name for it?
I would put that in poor vendor management, because you have to think about it in the context of like, you have the shadow IT aspect, probably more like lower base. Like ChatGPT is a good example of that. Call it shadow AI there. Like people are gonna chat GPT whether you want them to or not. This becomes more of a risk of, is this going to be tied to a business critical function? If it's accessing your customer data, anything like that, you have to look at this from a lens of, we need more security controls, we need better contracts in place, and we need a good response plan if something goes wrong in there.
Yeah, right. And you could, if you're looking for shadow, it could be shadow SaaS. Okay, I mean, if it's not blocked, it's allowed. And so all they have to do is put a credit card in and sign up. And now they're an administrator of a new program, and they have access to the data that they have access to, that they're allowed to use inside your organization, which means they can also grant access to that same information to another platform.
Right.
Shadow SaaS is very sassy. That's that's the takeaway here.
Also, another thing, can we
get the name of the episode now?
Data? Can we just stop? Can we just get rid of old data? Can we put parameters around old data?
Mm-hmm.
And how many healthcare organizations or other organizations, to call you out, because you're the ones who tend to keep a lot of data, because from a contractual standpoint, you need to keep it around. You could cold storage, take it offline, get rid of it. Stop. You want to limit your liability? Get rid, minimize the data.
You do.
Yep.
I tell you, the practicality of trying to do that in an organization is so difficult. It's I lived this, where it's like the certain teams are like, well, we're going to need this one file in this one really weird edge case in 15 years. And it's like, I can promise you, you won't. And
lawyers are so bad at this. We keep every template of every briefing, of every filing. Like the law firms have the insane amount. Instead of creating a template, they want to remember that there was that case with like the raccoon 7 years ago, and they want to remember it that way instead of creating a template that's usable.
Yeah. How dare I not include, by the way, law firms are the biggest violators.
Worst.
I mean, the worst when it comes to it. But put those parameters on there. Yeah, it's a pain in the butt to not be able to look on Office 365 and do a little keyword search. It's a pain, let's admit.
Yeah,
but
I was talking with a carrier. Sorry to interrupt, but I was talking to a carrier not too long ago, and we were talking about their underwriting standards, and they said, "What are we missing? What is it? What else would you ask?" And I said, "Why aren't we asking anything about information governance? I mean, because if you have good information governance practices, I can write a security protocol that can easily say, if we know this is the data and we feel confident about it, we follow our rules, I can secure it, I can track it. We can make sure that if there's an anomaly, we can detect it."
Oh, that actually is a good segue into the Disney FTC issue. Can I throw it out there? Or are we still going to go
do it?
Do it.
The reason that Disney got popped recently for $10 million settlement by the FTC was because they weren't labeling, go back to information governance, they weren't labeling child videos that were going to children as for children only. So they were getting adult ads going to children on YouTube. And this is actually the first FTC settlement against YouTube since 2019. So it's a huge deal because they've tried to be on their best behavior, but this is one of those things that has far-reaching effects, because this is someone who doesn't own the platform putting the content out there, but because they didn't label it correctly, they didn't have the right governance in place to label it the way they should. It did not, they're being faulted by the FTC. And I thought that was really interesting because there's been a lot of COPA, child privacy. That's a real big focus right now for the regulators. But it goes back to labeling. It truly was a labeling error when you go down to it. Is these videos were kid videos, but they weren't labeled. It was like Despicable Me and Bluey, like just different ones that were labeled. But the ads beside it might have been for something adult and not something that could also, the other issue is it bypassed, because they were kid videos but not labeled as such, the kids could go to it and it bypassed parental controls.
You know, I love this, Violet, because this is such an interesting piece that a lot of companies don't look at, which is the privacy piece, right? And the things where you're labeling certain things or you're complying with certain laws that, I mean, my goodness, it's whack-a-mole out there, right? So I mean, there's a difference between, hey, look, following an incident and all that pocket, right? Which becoming an explosive part of the litigation piece, right? And then you've got the other piece, right? Which is now 100% blowing up, which is the privacy stuff. There's all these regulators now that are attorney generals that are coming after you. They have regulators that are coming after you. I mean, FTC, you're not FCC, FTC, all those regulators. I always say to companies, that's another proactive thing you could do. What is the big goal? To not have to talk to me, to not have to talk to Stu, to not have to talk to anybody on this call, not to talk to Violet, right? Is because you want to proactively think about, are we in violation of a trap and trace law? Which, by the way, can we also talk about the fact that Newsom's not going to sign it in January? He's probably not going to sign it now. So trap and trace law is now going to be around for another year. That's how I think about it.
What is a trap and trace law?
Ooh, this is a good how-to. Get to it, Carolyn.
Oh, okay. Here we go. All right. Not to go all because you know how I love my shows and my movies, but it's kind of like, where was this law designed for? It was designed for, like, you know how you go in the, if anybody watched the show The Wire, come on, guys, come on, who hasn't watched it?
Come
I'll
on,
just see myself out
he
now.
doesn't watch TV. He's a robot that just goes on a treadmill like this.
Yes. So what you got, basically, essentially with trap and trace, and this is like, when I say the lawyer version of it, right? How I look at it as, you're literally, it was designed for the FBI agents. Like when you had, your typical wiretapping statutes, and you would be, you would have to listen on the phone, but then you would have to hang up after a certain amount of minutes if they weren't talking about what was in the ramification of what they were looking for, right? So essentially what trap and traces is this law under SIPA, right? Is what they're doing is they're tracking the IP addresses, right? Back and forth. But their violations, so another violations, right? More depending on how many people are going to the website and are not having the LinkedIn cookie wraparound. It is a very pop quick, and you get those letters in the mail, and then they become demands. And there's about 6 or 7 different plaintiffs' attorneys that are out there who do this day in and day out, right? That's all that they're doing. They're out there and looking to see who's in violation of this law.
And it's only become a big deal recently because privacy finally hit popularity, but it happened to be in plaintiffs' hands, right? Like the whole time we're like, we hope privacy gets cool. Well, it got cool with the plaintiffs getting money out of it. And so as soon as we started getting pixel litigation, we also saw trap and trace.
Exactly. And it was supposed to come off the books because Newsom is supposed to sign like a special part of that law that said, hey, look, this was not what the law was supposed to be intended for. Trap and trace comes out. Now it's going to be punted down. It looks like until next year. So those trap and trace letters that all those companies are getting. So again, tip, make sure that your LinkedIn wraparounds do have those wonderful consent banners. Don't just remove them, do the consent banners. But it goes to this wonderful idea, right? Violet was just talking about, what can we do? There's small moves, right? Not big moves, not costly moves, exactly as Stu was saying, right? Not costly moves to put companies in a good spot.
Well, I even have a practical question about this is, how did they not QA this? How did somebody, not say, hey, is our stuff working right? And, how did Disney not catch it before it went live and it had to come back and
I think it's the bigger question for, if you give data somewhere, do you know how they're going to use it? That's the question. Because they gave data, but they didn't realize how it was going to be used, because in their mind, it's a kid's video. It doesn't need to be labeled, right? They see it, they know it. Why would it need to be labeled? Oh, because ad tracking money is going to this when we put it on that platform. And that's the way their algorithm at YouTube is set up. And Disney's going, well, we have a different way, an algorithm to set up those restrictions and controls. So to me, it's like a usability thing that they didn't ask.
Right.
Well, I will just drop one footnote onto this conversation, and it really ties back to the earlier conversation about, keeping only the data that's necessary, et cetera, than that. I do have a drawer in the other room filled with wires that I might need one day. And I'm not throwing any of them out. So that's an ongoing dispute in our family. But I felt like somehow that might be relevant. Let's move on to the next topic.
I would say that it was a good drawer because I've been trying to find one for my like hard drive, backup hard drive that connects to an old school Mac. It disappeared, so I'm gonna have to
zip drives in there. I got all kinds of stuff.
Bring it to Philly.
We'll like go outlines. You never know.
To give you some optimism, I just recently threw out my Windows XP install CD, and it was very freeing.
Yeah,
very free.
Okay, because it kind of hurt as you said it. I just you know.
While we were moving, I actually finally found the power cord to my DVD player, so I can now play all those DVDs that have all the kids' cartoons on them.
Kids are going back to that because there's no ads. Like I have friends that don't do iPads; they only do DVD players in the car. Smart.
It is.
Maybe a note for Disney then.
Get back to Amazon too.
About those adult ads then.
I hope not.
Please just buy our DVDs again. You already sold them in a garage sale, but please buy them all again, all of the classics. And we're going to do the vault system like VHS.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of like old school ways, by the way, I have to say one of the things that we're seeing a lot of it lately, which is not like old school, but it seems like what I like to call the wow factor. You know how like you feel like you've got your arms around, oh, this is ransomware tactics. These are the wonderful things that are going on. And then those threat actors throw a little haymaker. Like they throw like a wonderful, I had a client call and I thought they were overreacting at first. They're like, oh, we saw this wonderful thing on CNN about like the wonderful thing with the FBI taking down this like farm of like laptops and all these people were exposed. And then they were talking about these fake employees. And then they were like, well, then we got this call from a person who said he was like Matt Smith and said, hey, look, I got like this notice that said, hey, look, I have it was like a healthcare notice that said like, I have like your healthcare organization, like healthcare with all these people through your organization. And he was like, I don't work with you guys. That's how company found out this fake employee issue. Is everybody else seeing this wonderful fake employee thing? I feel like I'm seeing
it's a growth area for sure. And we I think we've talked about it on earlier Morning Bytes, previous Morning Bytes programs. But we've definitely seen it where we had one where it was a different person that showed up. He saw something on the news and he had a bad feeling. So he started requiring all of his people, it was a developer, all the developers to go on camera during their one-on-ones. And this guy was on camera and he's like, you're not the guy I interviewed.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not the guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've been talking about like, what are some things that companies can do, right? Because in the world of deep fakes and AI, right? I mean, what do you do? What can you do to combat this major issue? I mean,
it goes back to policies, and I hate to, you guys think I'm a lawyer that makes no money because I keep saying how nothing doesn't cost too much, but these are low cost solutions. If you can implement the right policies and you have the right procedures, it's just about the time and training of the human resources to follow those policies and procedures to try to mitigate. You're never going to eliminate, but you can mitigate these types of risks, requiring people to turn their cameras on during the meeting, making sure that you do sort of a two-factor on the human aspect of it. Is this the same person on the screen that has the resume? And so I think that there certainly are things that we can do as businesses that fall outside of the high tech, world, to sort of combat the high tech risks that come with deep fakes and AI. And we've played with the voice manipulation, and we get the CEO's voice to ask for bank cards and get sent to you and things like that. So it just seems like you sort of have to resort to human tried and true protections against the new high-tech risks.
There are some good protections on commercial use, though, because I tried to use ChatGPT to put Barry Rapkin's face on a cat body, and it told me it was beyond the
Ooh.
preferences. They were like, we will not make a cat look like this human because this is a real human. And there was this whole reason why they would not let me put a cat body on this person's face.
We're going to have to teach you some jailbreaking tips.
Jailbreak, yeah.
I love it.
Demo. Let's do a demo, a live winning Bytes demo of jailbreak AI.
So I
Not
saw
on
something
company
this
time,
week
not on
We
that
have to be a
terrified
big
me.
disclaimer.
Yeah, I saw something this week that terrified me. Where historically, when you're thinking about deepfake videos and people doing interviews, the latest tip was, hey, just have them put their hand in front of their face, and you'll start to see distortion. And I was reading a Group IB report this week, and they had a video of an advertisement of this online underground service where it was showing deepfakes, and it was like they had the trick of like showing a light around your face. They had holding a face, your hand in front of your face.
Yep.
You could not tell. You absolutely could not tell. I literally sat there watching this thing 3 to 4 times, and I was like, maybe this isn't actually a deepfake. Maybe it's actually a real person, and they're trying to trick you. But like that's literally like I had to try to figure out. I don't know what the truth is there, but the tech is getting so good. I think those like the human tells are going to get harder. The best thing that I've seen so far is that you have companies that are mandating people come into an office for the first week or two to try to get around like the North Koreans that are hiring people to go into an office for a day just for onboarding. Like you have to get back to I won't say it too loud, right? But the return to office is a good way to try to combat this type of issue.
Right. I mean, I hate to say it, it's like me wearing white after Labor Day, which is in total protest, or asking me questions like, I don't know, Carolyn, are you a Giants fan versus an Eagles fan? And I'm like, listen, if you guys have to ask me that, then it's if I don't answer Giants fan, then it's a deep fake. That's all I'm saying.
Go Birds.
I did want to ask you, Carolyn, when you won the Cyber Law of the Year award, did Vanity Fair call you like right after, or was it like a couple of weeks, or what?
Stu, they asked me if you and I would share. They want that's
we want you to high five the trophies and like the power combines of the rings and Captain.
There we go.
It's like a throw, like a throwing thing. Versus my love of Star Wars will still remain the case. That's why I put my Eternity Year on my Amanda right here. So, like, I mean, I look at it as, Stu, you really just can't. I'll follow in your footsteps. You got to tell me how to like elbows out. That's where I wear my incognito, like my sunglasses all the time.
That's what I thought was happening here. I was like, well, once you're in the studio, you're safe. It's all right.
Well, if the technology's that good, did you really write your own blogs, or did you get somebody to help, or some tech to help?
That's why I'm going incognito from now on. I love when. By the way, when people ask about that, like if incognito means like people can't like track you whatsoever, and like is that where like the dark web is? Somebody asked me that the other day. Is incognito the dark web?
Well, with that tremendous query, we are going to have to say goodbye to our guest because this half hour just flies by. For everyone, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you follow Dave Forrestal. Make sure you follow the notorious CPR. Make sure you're following Violet, Jason, and myself. Next month, we have 2 more exciting guests. Alyssa Doroff will be here, as well as Andy Runyon, bringing the Southern flavor to our air. So check it out, October. We may be dressed in Halloween costumes. Not sure. Let it go with that. In the meantime, have an awesome month. Thank you for listening, and we will see you soon. If you're interested in joining the show, send us a message. We're looking in 2026, but still, we'll get you there. All right. Peace.
Bye.
All right. Peace
Thank
out.
you so much, everybody, for having